With that, welcome everyone to today's training on managing staff transitions. So we're just going to kind of have a casual conversation today. This training is not intended to be super long. We're talking maybe 15, 20 minutes, depending on if you have any questions. We just really want to get down and dirty with this topic. How do we manage staff transitions? It's kind of an ugly topic that people tend to shy away from because staff turnover is fun for no one. So we're going to start off today with some polling questions. But basically all we want to know is, have you experienced a staff transition, and what kind of area were you within that? Were you a supporting staff who had a new transitioning member coming in? Were you the person transitioning into someone else's role that you're now fulfilling? Or were you just kind of the person leaving? Were you the person transitioning out? If you haven't been part of a transition in that process, feel free to say, no, I haven't been part of this. But it's always good to come and gather some knowledge, because you never know when someone might leave or when you might have some staff transitions happen, right? Okay, so you said no as of right now. Awesome. We are going to then go to the next question, which I want to get some feedback on, which is, at an organization, your coalition, have you ever experienced a lapse in staff? So even though you might not have had someone quit and had to transition someone else in, do you feel like you're kind of missing someone? Do you feel like you've been missing someone for, more than 2 months? Awesome. It's great to be able to take a step back and ask ourselves that, because it might come down to the point where you guys feel that, hey, we've been missing someone for more than 2 months. Maybe we don't need someone in this position. Maybe we still do. And how do we adjust to make sure we can fill this position in a timely manner, right? Because it's already been more than 2 months. And we know sometimes pushing that 2-month mark, it's getting to the point where it's getting tougher to find the right person. So that's why I think it's great to stop and ask ourselves, how long has it been? Have we been missing a person for 1 week and we got some interviews coming up? We're going to hopefully hire someone in the next month. Has it been that longer of the 2-month or longer period to where, it's really starting to get slim pickings? How do we adjust whether it's our, job description or things along those lines to get someone in this staff position that is qualified, that is going to help our organization? So awesome. So before we get too far in today, I want to give a quick shout out. So this topic was kind of sparked by a presentation that we had at our retreat last year. They talked about managing staff transitions because they have kind of seen a lot of them in their past 2 to 3 years. They went through a lot of staff turnover, and they just gave a great presentation showing some helpful documents that you can use when it comes to staff transitions. And I just really want to give them a shout out. That's Schuyler County Coalition on Underage Drinking and Drugs, and they are in New York, up by Finger Lakes. But they have some great information, and we really appreciate them presenting at our retreat. We wanted to kind of take that topic that they presented on today and kind of spin it a different way. So we're going to use some of their information and then kind of expand on that. So the one thing I really liked that Schuyler County Coalition was talking about in their presentation was, how does staff transition affect a coalition or an organization? Really, when it comes down to it, your staff leaves, and the typical result is going to be progress towards goals slows or is decreasing, right? We just lose that we lose that progress we had working towards our goals because we don't have anyone filling that position to work on it anymore. So in order to combat that, we want to look today in terms of evaluation, because we're evaluators here, how to kind of evaluate that process and how to manage those staff transitions. Is there different things that we can do? Is our process fine? And really taking more of an evaluation approach to managing those staff transitions. So the first thing that is super important is to ask ourselves, why do staff leave? This is a really important question, especially for people like Schuyler who had 3 people leave in the term of 2 years. Why are they leaving? Is there something wrong with how we are framing the job description? Is it not a good fit? Are we just not finding the right candidate? What is it? And sometimes it might be as simple as asking those people who are leaving, which can be a difficult conversation, but can be very helpful in terms of planning for your coalition when it comes to hiring someone to fulfill this now gap loss in employment that we have. The key thing here is to help your coalition or your organization narrow down the main reason. If everyone's telling you that your job description is not adequate and they didn't think the job was going to be what it was, simple, it's an issue with job description, and maybe it's where you're looking for people to hire and not finding them in the right category or the right area to fulfill that job. If it's just straight up they don't like the work, maybe it's the people that you're hiring, you're not vetting them enough, or maybe it's something about the interview process that maybe you're not asking the right questions to see if they're going to be a good fit in your office and with that type of work. So this is a huge question that I always recommend starting out with is, why do staff leave? Sometimes it seems really silly to say that, but a lot of people tend to forget to think about this. They lose a staff and begin hiring the next person. And it's like, sometimes you need to take a pause and say, well, why do they leave? Typical things that can come up could be a better job opportunity. This is sometimes just kind of the run-of-the-mill stuff happens in life. Someone might get a better job opportunity, so they leave, right? Or they take a promotion even in the coalition or the organization. That would be great, right? But then we still have a gap there that we need to fill. Next, we have maybe the job wasn't a good fit. So I went into this a little bit. Maybe they just didn't feel they were using their skills properly, or they didn't have the right skills to fulfill that job. Maybe it was personnel differences, maybe they had some things going on in their life and they just had to leave. We never know, what's going on in someone's life unless we actually have that conversation with them, which, like I said, we should be asking that, why are you leaving type question. Not in a, negative way, but just saying, we want to better improve our process for the future. We would like to know your reasoning for leaving, which most people will have that conversation with you if that's the way you go about it. The next reason we have is maybe that the job application or the description was not enough to find the right candidate. So I went into this a little bit a second ago too. Making sure your job description says everything that person will be doing. Make sure they are able to make that decision of, hey, I can do these things or I can't do these things, so I know I can or shouldn't apply, right? Making sure that that job description is very explicit in that information will help you guys find the right candidate even faster. That will hopefully stay longer. Next, we have maybe there's the new staff struggles to get up to speed due to lack of resources on onboarding. This is really targeted at knowing where your gaps are. So Skylar's whole point of their kind of presentation that they gave at retreat was kind of around this. They were finding that a lot of their staff that was leaving, it was due to the lack of resources and onboarding. They just straight up didn't know what to do in that position and were drowning, and either were A, let go, or B, left because they felt like they were not supported enough. So making sure that those are all in place to adequately support your new staff, whether it's resources, whether it's check-in calls with, other staff, to make sure that they know what they're doing and they don't have any questions. Maybe they left or just resigned for retirement, right? We all know that retirement comes around here or there. Someone has been in the field for a while and they just decide to retire. That's okay. But that could be a reason that staff is leaving. And then lastly, the one that we all hate, but it does come up from time to time, is maybe they were let go or they were fired. This could be for different reasons, maybe because they were unable to fulfill their duties, maybe they did something really wrong, but that is kind of our final reason there that why staff would be leaving. So those are some big ones. Like I said, making sure to have this conversation in a respectful way with a staff member who's maybe leaving or transitioning out, or maybe they did get a promotion. Asking them like, hey, why are you leaving this position? Is this just for personal reasons, or is there something bigger at hand that we can address? With that, we're going to get into the next kind of area topic we're going to focus on, and this is going to have more of that kind of evaluation aspect to it, and that is how to manage after losing a staff member. So this is kind of the bulk of our topic today, is how do we manage this? And the big thing that I like to fall back to, like I said, being an evaluation, is some different steps that we should be taking. So after we ask the person who's leaving why they're leaving, or why they're, maybe taking a new job or something like that, we then kind of need to probably look to a process like this. So obviously assessing. like I said, asking that question, why are you leaving? Maybe doing some research to see if their reasoning was valid. So if it was because they didn't feel like they had adequate resources or were not supported enough, making sure to maybe check in on those and say, okay, well, are their claims valid? Do we maybe need to implement some more resources for our onboarding for our new staff members? Is there things that we maybe are using now that we shouldn't be using anymore? Are those things still valid? After we do our research, we then need to either update or modify from there. So if it is that maybe our job description is not adequate enough to state what is required of this new staff member, maybe we need to update that, right? Not saying that's always the case. You might do this research and find out that everything is fine and the person that left was just, it was their time to leave and we don't need to update anything. We just need to hire any new person. That's okay too. Just make sure that we are taking this step and looking at everything, because if that person was there for 5 years and then left, that job description might be 5 years old. The coalition might not be doing the exact same work that they were 5 years ago, right? Times change. So making sure that those are updated as well will help you guys really find a better staff member that will be more equipped to hold on to that position. And then we get into the implementation phase. So being able to actually implement those new things that we modified or updated or maybe didn't even change. So whether that's implementing a new onboarding process. Maybe it's implementing a new interview process. Maybe it's implementing a new process that we're going to have check-in calls with senior staff and the new training staff members every week to make sure that they're getting the support they need and don't have any questions, right? Making sure that we do that will be super helpful when it comes to our last phase, which is evaluation. Like I said, we should evaluate everything we do, mainly because a person can be struggling to get up to speed in an organization or coalition and not be vocal about it. Some people just aren't. And that's their kind of way that they function, but then they could leave in the next week and leave you stranded because you had no idea there was a problem, right? So making sure we have that evaluation component, whether it's a survey that you give the new staff member a month after being there to see where they're uncomfortable, where they still need help, or like I said, having a weekly check-in call with them to make sure that they know that you're there for them. You know that they're getting the help they need. Making sure we have those kind of check-in evaluation components will hopefully help reduce the amount of staff turnover that you have and staff leaving the organization. So with that, we kind of get into, so how do we manage? From doing this assessment phase, there's a variety of different things. I kind of walked through some there in the implementation phase, but making sure that we look at our different options because they might not all work for everyone, right? And sometimes it might be tailoring it to that new person that is hired. Training person A might be completely different than training and onboarding person B. So making sure that you ask them, talk, have that conversation of what do you need? How do you learn? Are you feeling like you're getting adequate help within this training and kind of onboarding phase? That is going to be a huge one there. So is there any questions that you have? That was kind of my overall spiel on the topic of kind of managing staff transitions. There is, of course, added layers here or there depending on your coalition. And I know this was intended to be a little bit more of a conversation, so I apologize for that, Barb. We did want it to be more kind of share your thoughts, share your experiences. We actually had some chat questions lined up that we wanted you guys to be able to talk about. But just make sure that we're being cognizant of the things that we're doing when it comes to hiring staff, because it tends to be an area that as a coalition we don't have a lot of time for. We have lots of different things that we're doing, right? But we do need to make sure that we are looking at these different steps, thinking through who we want to hire and not just going out and hiring all willy-nilly, because that's going to lead to higher staff turnover because we might not be finding the right person if we're not really thinking through what we need and how do we find that. Thank you everyone for joining us today and have a great rest of your day.